Welcome back. Today we're going to be working on rotations day number 1. Our content objective is students will be able to perform and describe how to rotate figures 180 degrees counterclockwise on a coordinate plane. Language objective is students will be able to explain verbally how they rotate a figure on a coordinate plane. And why am I learning this? Well, it's important for real-world problems like the creation of video games. So first, let's talk about what a rotation is. A rotation is essentially rotating a figure around a fixed point. Now in the 8th grade, this fixed point that we're rotating figures around is going to be mainly the origin. Okay, so that's our main focus, is rotating figures around the origin, which is 0, 0. Okay, so first of all, what we're going to go ahead and do is look for a pattern. Okay, we're asked, says here, the following figure was rotated 180 degrees counterclockwise. Write the coordinate pair of the pre-image and image. So all that they're asking us to do is to first write down the order pairs. For example, for B, which should be -3, -2. And then we're going to go ahead and also do B prime, which is 3, +2. Okay. Now M would be -2, 3, and M prime would be 2, -3. And then last but not least, we have W, which is -4, 2, and W prime, which is 4, -2. Now, as we're doing this, I do want you to look for a pattern, because there is a pattern with how our coordinates from the pre-image is generated to make the coordinates for the image after the rotation. So let's take a look at another one. So for number 2, it says the following figure again was rotated 180 degrees counterclockwise. Write the coordinate pair of the pre-image and image. So here we're going to go in alphabetical order. G is -4, 2. G prime is 4, -2. Let's see, S is -3, 4, and S prime is 3, -4. And then last but not least, we have X, which is -2, 0. and X prime, which is 2, 0. Okay, so on that note, I want you to again look for some patterns. What do we notice from the pre-image coordinate pairs to the coordinate pairs for the image, so after the rotation? Do you notice pattern? Is there something happening to these numbers? So on that note, let's go ahead and have you try number 3 on your own and see if you can figure it out. Okay, so let's take a look. Hopefully you had the following. You got D is 3, -4, and you got D prime to equal -3, 4. For F, you should have gotten 3, 0, and F prime should have been -3, 0. M was 4, -4, so M prime should have been -4, 4. And for Q, we have 2, 0, and Q prime should be -2, 0. So now that we've gone ahead and did 3 examples, let's take a closer look at the order pairs and see if we can go ahead and identify what that pattern actually is when figures are rotated 180 degrees counterclockwise. So now taking a closer look at the order pairs, I hope that you recognized a pattern. So notice what originally was a -3 became a +3. What was originally a -2 became a +2. Now, was this true to all the other ordered pairs? Well, let's take a look at some random ones. Here it was 3 and it became a -3, and what was originally -4 became a +4. Okay, let's pick a random one here. What was originally a -3 became a +3. What was originally a 4 became a -4. So again, hopefully you started to realize that what ended up happening after the 180 rotation was you had to take the opposite of the original X value as well as the opposite of the original Y value. Okay, so with that said, let's go ahead and write that into our notes. When we're rotating a figure 180 degrees, the coordinate rule is going to be the following. X, Y will give you the opposite of X and the opposite of Y. So here are some examples. 2, -3 would become -2, +3. So we're taking the opposite of the X, the opposite of the Y. Here, let's just keep moving. -1, -5 became a +1, +5. A -4, +5 becomes a +4, -5. And then last but not least, a 7, 0 is going to become a -7, 0. So notice there's no such thing as a -0, so keep that in mind. you are taking the opposite of each of the x values and the y values to get the new ordered pair. Okay, so one thing that I do want you to take a look at is the following. If I were to rotate a triangle, let's see, 180 degrees, let's see what happens. Okay, let's look at the ordered pairs. Notice again that we are taking the opposite of the x, the opposite of the y, the opposite of the x, the opposite of the y, again the opposite of the x and the opposite of the y. So you're going to notice this is what's always going to happen when we have a 180 degree rotation. So going back to the lesson, here now it says the following points were rotated 180 degrees counterclockwise. Write the coordinate pair of the pre-image and image. So all that we're really going to do is take the opposite of the x values to make the new x, and then take the opposite of the y value to give you our new y value. So here, what was originally -5, -5 for d prime will become +5, +5. For f, what was originally 3, 1, for f prime will be -3, -1. So I'm just taking the opposite value of the x, opposite value of the y. For m, which was -7, 1, will become m prime, which is 7, -1. And then for d, for q, which is 0, 5, will then become q prime, which is 0, -5. So notice again, there's no such thing as a -0, so we just kept it as 0, but we went ahead and took the opposite of 5, which is -5. So at this point, I'd like you to go ahead and pause the video and try E through H on your own. Okay, so let's see how we did. E, for letter E, we should have B prime as -4, 4. A prime should be 3, 0. R prime should be 1, 3. And J prime should be -2, -10. So yet again, we just took the opposite of the x values and the opposite of the y values, and that was it. Okay, so on that note, let's go ahead and move on to the next example. So now it says here, triangle ABC has vertices A, 1, 0, B, 3, 3, C, 5, 0. Rotate triangle ABC 180 degrees about the origin counterclockwise. So what I like to do first is write down one of the original ordered pairs. So A is 1, 0. I'm going to go ahead and take the opposite of x and the opposite of y, which would give me -1, 0. Then I'm going to repeat the process. B was 3, 3. So B prime, I'm going to take the opposite of x, which is -3, and the opposite of y, which is also -3, which is going to give me -3, -3. And then last but not least, for C, which is 5, 0, we're going to take the opposite of x, the opposite of y, which gives us C prime as -5, 0. Now once we have these new ordered pairs, you're just going to go ahead and plot these points on your coordinate graph, and then connect the points together, and you will find what the image looks like after the rotation. Now, as we're doing this, I do want to talk about, what characteristics these rotations are preserving, because we always look at a few characteristics. Number one, we look at the shape. We also look at the size as well as the orientation. So here, does it retain the same shape? Yes, they're the same exact ordered pair. Do they retain the same size? Yes, they didn't get bigger, they didn't get any smaller, they're exactly the same. Now, did it preserve the orientation? The answer is no, because the angular positioning has changed. They're not the same anymore. So rotations are very similar to reflections in the sense that the main characteristics that are being preserved is the shape and the size. Keep in mind that whenever the shape and the size is being preserved, you're essentially creating a congruent shape. So these two triangles here are congruent. Corresponding sides are congruent and corresponding angles are congruent as well. Okay, so now moving on to the very last example. What I'd like you to do is go ahead and pause the video and try number 6 on your own. Okay, so let's see how we did. Hopefully you first wrote down the original ordered pair as well as found the new ordered pair based on our coordinate rule. So A, which was 1, 1, should have became A prime, which is -1, -1. B, which was 4, 7, should have given you B prime, which is -4, -7. And C, which was 4, 1, should have given you C prime, which is -4, -1. So again, we just use this coordinate rule here. found the opposite of x, found the opposite of y to give us our new ordered pairs. Once you have that, graph it onto your graph, and you will see this is the figure after the rotation. Now keep in mind that whenever you do rotations, you should expect the same shape, you should expect the same size. Now if you don't see that, then that's a good indication that you might have done something wrong, because we know that rotations preserves a couple characteristics. Okay, they preserved one, which is shape, as well as size. Okay, we do understand it doesn't preserve orientation, but we do expect these because this is what's going to allow us to see the congruent shapes. Okay. Okay, so that is actually going to conclude the lesson for today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and as always, until next time, bye.